Yo, today I'll be showing you my camera rig and why it's important to have a big rig. So, firstly, it looks like you know what the fuck you are doing when you turn up to set with a big rig. I once shot a wedding where the photographer had been doing it for 15 years, and this was only my second or third family wedding that I'd filmed, and everyone was coming up to me and saying, "Oh wow, you look so professional, like the photographer looks like he doesn't know what he's doing." Even though he was in control of the whole situation, he was getting people together. I want photos of these people together and them people together. I was just there like, the camera, don't know what I'm doing, I'll follow your lead, mate. But I was getting compliments on how professional I looked. So just by having a bigger rig, it made me look like I had years of experience, when in reality, this was my third time doing it, and he's been, don't know however many he's done, but 15 years worth. So having a bigger rig just makes you look like you just know what you're doing, basically. So that is number one. So second reason is you can charge more money. It sounds silly because, like, how can you charge more money just by having a bigger camera? Well, if you turn up to a shoot with a small little tiny DSLR camera and the lens, and that's basically it, people are gonna look at you and think, really, I'm paying this amount of money for this guy? I could literally film the same thing on my phone. Where if you just slapped a load of accessories onto that exact same camera and just built it into a big rig, you turn up to set, people are gonna be like, yeah, that's the man for the job. He's worth the extra money, because you just look more professional, more experienced. The rig looks like it costs a lot more money, which obviously it does cost more money because you're building it out, but it's the exact same camera, same sensor, same lens. It's the same thing, but because it looks expensive, people think, oh yeah, you know, this is my videographer, look at him, you know, easy rig, big camera and that. Everyone think, wow, like, he looks sick, I bet he costs a lot. So you can almost get away with charging more because people think, oh yeah, you know, it's got to cost a lot of money, that has, and obviously it does, but it just looks like you're worth more money. So the third reason is that it will make your handheld footage look more authentic and natural. This is because the weight of your camera takes any micro jitters out of your footage. So micro jitters are, if you've got a light camera, you're trying to hold that camera. Obviously, naturally, our arms shake and move, and hands. And if you've got a light camera, it picks those small little shakes, which are called micro jitters. It picks them up in the footage. Whereas if you've got a heavier camera, it doesn't really pick any of them out because of the weight of it. It's like holding a heavy object and a light object. If you've got a heavy object, you don't really notice any little small jitters. If you've got a light object, you'll notice little small twitches in it. So basically, it just makes your handheld footage look more legit and natural. So that's just 3 things of why a heavier camera rig is better. So now let's get on to the actual rig itself, and I'll go through each accessory that I've got on there. Right, so let's start with the first thing you'll need, which is a cage. This is essential for any camera when building it out. Basically, it's a cage that goes around your camera and it allows you to add multiple accessories all around the camera. So I've got the small rig cage for my camera, which is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro, and it has a really cool feature, which is a SSD slot underneath the cage. It comes quite in handy to slot it out of the way. Speaking of SSD, I've got the Samsung T5, which has 1TB of storage. The reason why I have 1TB of storage is because the Blackmagic files are absolutely massive. Even when recording on the lowest sort of quality and compression rate, or higher compression rate, lower quality footage, I'm still getting ridiculous file sizes. I've had 10-hour shoot day and I came back with about 600 gig of footage. So it's just a ridiculous amount of footage. So that's why I've gone for the 1TB SSD. I definitely recommend having a few of these. They are quite cheap. You can probably pick them up off Amazon for about £100. And going back to the cage where it slots underneath, I actually don't use that. I actually mount my SSD on top because I've had issues in the past where it's actually stopped recording and I've not seen it because it's under the cage. So I like to keep it on top. And this is no fault of the cage or the SSD or anything. It's because I use a really short cable. I've not found one yet that's a perfect length. I know you're probably thinking, well, why don't you just get a longer cable? Well, I don't want that's too long where I've got to try and wrap it around everywhere and it just gets in the way. I thought I'd have a shorter one and just mount it on top, so that way it's not in the way. If it's mounted on top, I can then easily see if it's stopped recording, or because there's a blue flashing light on there, so I can check, yep, cool, we're still recording. So that's the reason why I've not used the SSD slot underneath. If I could find a perfect length cable, then yeah, it'd be amazing to use. But there's no problem with having it mounted on top for me, because I've got a cheese plate on top of the camera, which basically is like a big metal plate, and I can just mount all different various things on there. Next, going to go on to the handles that I have on my camera. So starting off on top of the cheese plate is the top handle. This has got a nice rubber grip on there, and I definitely recommend getting a rubber grip on it. The reason being is because I used to have one that was pure metal, and the issue was my hand kept slipping all the time. So I highly recommend getting one that has a grip on it. Also, on top of this camera, as you'll see, I've got a little eye bolt on top of it. This is, I'll show later in the video, for my easy rig to clip onto it. And as you'll see, I also have two side handles. This just gives me more control over the camera and more holding positions, you know, depending on what situation I'm in. I can hold it either on the left side, the right side, or the top. Just gives more variety of where I can hold it, and also gives me more control over the camera, so there's less shakes, or you know, I'm not holding it in an awkward position. And both of the side handles also have a cold shoe mount, same as the one on the top handle. So speaking of the cold shoe mounts on the handles, next we're going to go on to microphones. On the right handle I have a Rode NTG3B shotgun mic, and on the left I have my Rode Wireless Go 2 receiver. As you can see, I am recording off of the Rode Wireless Go 2, as you can see it here. I wouldn't normally mount it here, I like to have it hidden underneath somewhere. I like to put a lav mic actually plugged into this and then run it, and I have like a bit of tape underneath here so you can't actually see it. But for the purpose of this video, I thought, you know, I'll put it on show so you can actually see it. And then I'm also filming off the Rode NTG-B3, which is just out of frame here. It's also got the fluffy dead cat attached to it. And I'll switch now between the Rode Wireless Go 2 mic and the Rode NTG3B mic, just so you can hear the comparison between the both. They're both very good, both better for different circumstances. So I actually have the Rode NTG3B plugged into the H4n Pro. Now this is just a recording device that you can record audio separately. If I'm obviously shooting, I won't record into this a lot. I'll normally have it on my camera and the audio going directly into my camera. And the good thing about the Rode Wireless Go 2 is these also, when you plug them into your computer, they have a separate file, so you can just go straight into that file. Let's say, for example, for whatever reason the audio doesn't go directly into the camera, then you can still get the files directly off of the actual mic itself when you plug it into your computer. Also, having the receiver mounted onto the camera on the handle, I can clearly see my levels to see if there's any peaking, you know, if the audio is too loud or too quiet. I can see that directly on there, even though it is actually mounted the wrong way around. I have to just give it a little turn around, or just pull it out, turn it around, have a look, and I can see. They say you can watch a low quality video with good audio, but you can't watch a high quality video with bad audio. So make sure you get a decent audio device. I'd recommend either of these two. Obviously they offer different things. The lav mic is cheaper than the Rode NTG3B. I think I paid about £350 for the Rode NTG3B. And the guy brought it brand new about 10 years ago for like 800 quid. So it's quite a good deal at the minute. The only downside to the Rode NTG3B shotgun mic is it has to be phantom powered. So luckily for me, the Blackmagic Pocket has phantom power, and also so does the H4n Pro. So if you don't have a device that can hold phantom power, it's not going to be the microphone for you. You're better off getting one that has a battery already inside of it, Basically, phantom power just means there's no battery inside it. It has to be powered by a device, so the camera or the audio recorder. So if you don't have something like that, you're better off getting like a Sennheiser. I believe they do a similar microphone. I think is more money, but it can power itself basically, which would be more ideal. So next you'll want a monitor. The one on the Blackmagic 6K Pro is a decent monitor. It's very bright, it flips out, but I always like to have an extra monitor just if I'm in any, tight sort of space, or it's just easier sometimes that I'm looking over the camera, and if the monitor's here I could see it just, but I have to look right down, whereas I'd rather have another one just up here where my top handle is, so I can see it a lot easier. If you are going to get a monitor, I'd definitely recommend getting a 7-inch monitor. You can get 5-inch monitors, but to be honest with you, I feel like the bigger the better almost. It just helps see your whole entire frame. You can see if there's, something in like the top corner which you probably wouldn't have recognised on a smaller monitor. And I've definitely noticed that when I've been shooting before, where having a larger monitor, I've seen something was in the corner of the frame that I may not have seen if it was on a smaller monitor. So definitely recommend going for a 7-inch monitor. The monitor I've got is a Feel World monitor, which they're not the best in terms of different menu systems and brightness. You can get better ones than the one I've got. The one I've got is just a very cheap one, which if you're on a budget, then this one is definitely worth the money. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was probably less than like £200. So it's a very good budget monitor. But if you have got a better budget, then I definitely recommend going for something like, a small HD 7-inch monitor, or I think it's a Ninja or something that's powered by like a port keys monitor cable. Something that's basically better than the one I've got. But if you're on a budget, this one's absolutely fine. But you will struggle in, let's say for example, the sun's out and it's like hitting your screen. Yeah, you can't see your screen at all, basically. Well, you can, but it's very difficult. It does come with a sun hood, which is nice, so which is definitely helps when it's sunny and bright outside. But you still do struggle to see the screen because it isn't very bright. The good thing about this monitor is it's powered by a Sony NPF battery. I use the Sony NPF 970, which is a big fat battery. I'll actually have one somewhere. So I actually power it with one of these, which is it's quite a beefy battery, and it does add quite a bit of weight to your camera, which is also another good thing. Obviously we want more weight to it. So this will literally power the monitor that I've got for pretty much all day. It holds a lot of power. They do take a long time to charge, so you definitely want to charge it like overnight. It's a good few hours, I've noticed, but they do last a long time for a monitor like this, for example. You can also use it if you had any video lights. These batteries are really good, to be fair, so I definitely recommend getting some of these. So speaking of batteries, that's what we'll go on to next. So I use a V-mount battery for my camera. You can pick these up they range from different prices. Some can be, so the one I got was a cheaper one, which I want to say is around about £100, but some go for like £500. It's really weird, the scale. I can't remember exactly where I got mine from. I think it was Amazon, but it was cheap enough and it powers my camera for pretty much all day. The problem with the Blackmagic 6K Pro is it just absolutely rinses the batteries that are inside, because they're only small little MPF batteries. And then obviously you'll need a V-mount battery plate. So the one I use is the Small Rig V-mount battery plate, and the reason I like this one is because you can alter the angle. So if you wanted it flat or upside down, or there's various ways you can mount the battery. So I like to have it up, and I actually use it as a bit of like a rest against my shoulder. So definitely recommend this plate. Next, you'll need some rails in order to mount obviously all your accessories to it. I use the 16-inch in length and 50mm in diameter rails, or rods, however you want to say it. I wanted to make sure I had a long enough space so that I could still tilt my monitor screen out and still see that screen, as well as having the battery on the back and still have the lens support on the front and also fit the follow focus on. So I wanted a decent length so I could fit all that on. I did actually buy some shorter ones, but I found that the VMAX battery was too close to the monitor, so I couldn't fully tilt it back out. Whereas having the 16-inch length, I can literally put that monitor all the way back and still have a bit of room from where the VMAX battery is. So one of the attachments that I have on the rails is a lens support. So this basically prevents the weight of the lens pulling down and damaging the threads inside of your camera. So I mean, it probably doesn't make a massive difference, but just to be on the safe side, you know, it adds an extra bit of support and actually keeps the rig all together with multiple contact points. So if you don't have the lens support, you'll find it sort of like can flop around a bit. So it just sort of makes it a bit more sturdy and just well structured as well. But it also obviously prevents from the weight of the lens pulling down on the actual threads inside your camera. So it's definitely a good idea to invest into, and it's very cheap. Speaking of lenses, that's what we'll talk about next. So obviously you're gonna need a lens. You can choose any lens that you want, but for handheld, if your camera doesn't have in-body stabilization, which the Blackmagic 6K Pro doesn't, then I definitely recommend getting a lens that has in-body stabilization. This will just make your handheld shots a hell of a lot more smoother. Obviously not too smooth so it looks like a gimbal, but it will take a lot of extra jitters out and it really does make it look so much nicer and smoother. And if you combine it with the Easy Rig on top, you can literally hold the camera, or not even hold the camera because the Easy Rig literally holds it itself. And you can just literally just tilt like that. It's left and right, and it looks like it's almost on a tripod. It's literally that stable with the stabilization and the Easy Rig. It's so stable, and so it just makes workflow a lot better and quicker. So next is a follow focus. I use the Small Rig manual follow focus. I used to use the Tilter Nucleus Nano, which is a electronic follow focus system, which is very good, but for the purpose of this rig build, it was kind of not for the purpose of this build, because it would take longer to change lenses because I'd have to calibrate the actual follow focus wheel to different lens every time, which took a lot longer. Very good bit of kit, but it's better for, let's say you're on a bigger shoot and you had a first AC to do focus for you. That'd be a better time to sort of use something like this. Or if you've got a gimbal, this would definitely be a lot better. I mean, I know some gimbals already have it built in to the actual gimbal itself, but if it didn't, or you wanted to use a different alternative, then the Tilter Nucleus Nano is a very good job for that. The reason why I went for the Small Rig manual focus is because it's so much easier. You can set your ins and out points. Literally all you do is twist it left to unlock it, and then twist it right again to lock it back into place where the in and out points are for that lens, so the focus in and out points. And it's just a lot simpler to do. So if you're swapping lenses, it takes hardly any time. You just move it back, put your new lens on, put it back in, and then just set your focus points. Dead simple and easy. Because it's manual, there's no electronic bit, so there's a lot less to go wrong. Yeah, definitely the Small Rig manual follow focus is a good shout to get. So the next thing you'll need is a matte box. I mean, you don't actually have to have one of these, but it really does like complete your rig. It makes it look so much more professional, especially when you get one as big as this. This is what I used to have. This is the Tilter mini matte box. And you can see the one that I use, the Small Rig one, is far bigger than the Tilter one. The Tilter matte box is good, especially for like a smaller rig build, but obviously we want a bigger rig. Also, it can only hold one filter, whereas the Small Rig can actually hold 2 filters inside of it. And just the sheer size of it just makes your rig look so much bigger and more complete and more professional. You know, going back to being able to charge more money and look more professional, this definitely does the job a lot better. And then lastly is the Easy Rig. This is the creme de la creme icing on the cake. It's basically like walking into the men's changing rooms with a massive cock. Now, obviously this isn't required, but since buying one, I definitely recommend it because it saves your back and your shoulders, and it makes it so much easier to just capture shots. Because before, I'll be holding my rig, and I'm holding like this, and my shoulders are burning. I mean, you know, I'm not exactly the skinniest. No, I'm fucking about. I'm not putting that in. Can't stress enough how much easier having an easy rig has helped me get shots, because when my rig is fully rigged out, it's like almost 7 kilograms. You think, oh, 7 kilograms, not that much. Yeah, over like a 12-hour day, or even just holding it for an hour or half an hour, for example, you really do notice it. And you know, you get 4 on pump. If you're holding it up here with your shoulders, then I mean, it's probably wise to get like a shoulder rig mount, but it just makes it so much more easier to get shots with, because you're not struggling and shaking trying to hold your rig up together. Obviously, the only issue with these is they aren't cheap at all. I couldn't find any second-hand ones anywhere, so unfortunately I had to buy one brand new, and they cost about £1,000 for the cheapest one. And I believe they actually only go up to 7 kilograms, and my rig, fully rigged out, is about 6.7 kilograms, I think it is. So it's literally on that top end spectrum. And after buying one, I did actually think like, have I made a mistake here? It's a lot of money. But since doing shoots, my god, it has saved like my back and my shoulders so many times. I can remember in the past where I'd literally be holding it, like, you got the shot, I'm like, yeah, I've got it, yeah. And like, it's just the whole thing shaking about, even with the IBIS on. The shot's still getting shaky because I just can't hold up that weight up for that long. So yeah, I definitely recommend getting an easy rig. It really does save your back and your shoulders. I've even been looking at getting an umbrella mount for it. So no matter the weather, you can go out and shoot with it, because on top of the actual easy rig, you can get an umbrella that goes over the top of you. So, you know, you ain't got to worry about your camera getting wet or anything. So I'm not gonna lie, it's a lot of money to invest into something, but you just look like an absolute boss when you turn up to set with an easy rig. You know, everyone just thinks he knows what he's doing. Look at him, the easy rig on, yeah, he knows what he's on with. Really, ain't got an absolute clue. So I'm just going to finish off with just the disadvantages to having a big rig. Bigger rigs, obviously a lot heavier. You can't put it on a gimbal. You'd have to strip it down. Honestly, that is the main issue I find with a bigger rig, is how I wanted to put it on a gimbal, but because it's so built out, it would take me like at least half an hour to de-strip the whole thing down to put it on a gimbal. So I'm actually looking at just getting another camera to put on the gimbal, which obviously it's more money. That's why I haven't done it yet. So my gimbal literally, you can just see it just literally lives there collecting dust, because I don't ever want to strip this camera down because it just takes so long. Sorry, I'm rambling on here. Bulky, heavy, can't put it on a gimbal. Obviously, it's gonna hurt your back and your shoulders if you don't really get an easy rig. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please leave a comment down below on anything you're not sure on, or anything you want me to go over in more detail, and I'll happily respond to your comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.